Hey guys, it's the History Nerd, and I'm here with sort of an appendix, a companion series to the Habsburg Millennium. I think we're gonna call this CK2 101. I don't know. You guys know, because by the time you're watching this, you're clicking on a video that has a title, and I haven't come up with the title name yet. So, there you go. Whatever it is, whatever we call it. I'm just gonna go over how you play the game. Now, I want to put a big, asterisk or spoiler. No, well, that's not really a spoiler, but a big little warning that I am by no means an expert at this game. If you're looking for the nitty-gritty details of, how would be the best... Wow. What would be the best way to make sure you're always gonna kick ass and be successful and expand across the map and all that other stuff? I don't know any of that. So if that's what you're looking for, then you probably shouldn't be at a 101 level class. You should be at a far more advanced class. This is like Introduction to CK2. And it's a little bit different than any other grand strategy game. It's kind of like an RPG grand strategy hybrid. At least that's how I think of it, and that's how I approach it. So, to understand what I mean by that, and I don't even know where to start here, because it's a Paradox game, so there's going to be craziness, and complicated systems and all this other stuff. So let's start with who you are in the game. Now, Crusader Kings II is a little bit different. In EU4, in Victoria 2, in Hearts of Iron, whatever. And really in Europa Universalis 1 through 4, in Victoria 1 and 2, and in basically any other Paradox grand strategy game, you're playing as the nation. So, you're in control of Bavaria. And there isn't really much that can happen for you to lose control of Bavaria without the game ending. Because that's who you're playing. And if Bavaria gets annexed, you don't have anyone else to play because the country you picked to play just got annexed. With Crusader Kings II, you're playing the family. So, obviously, in this situation, I loaded up the same start I did the series with. The keen-eyed might notice that some of these stats are different. They're kind of randomly generated at each start of the game. Specifically, I don't know if, for instance, young Philip here of France or, William the Bastard or whatever, if those stats are done randomly, like the big important characters of certain time frames. But certainly a minor little count in Argau. First off, we don't really know much about Werner of Argau. So you can see he doesn't even have a Wikipedia link. And I doubt his son does either. So this is far enough back in history that we don't know a lot about the minor rulers. So it looks like old Werner here, he's always going to come up as a tough soldier, which means his military stats are going to be generally a little higher. So if you're lost with what I'm saying already, let's pull this train back into the harbor and take a look at what these stats are. So you can see we got 5 stats. We've got state diplomacy, which, as you can see in the tooltips, I'm going to read the tooltips because I'm assuming that you guys want that. I don't know. I'm going to read the tooltips because it'll be easier to explain it. So diplomatic skills affect other characters' opinion of you, and it is important for tasks given to the Chancellor. We'll cover what the Chancellor and the Marshal and all that is in a bit. Right now, we're just going to go through the stats and discuss, what they're going to do for you. So diplomacy is going to give you, and I'm not even really sure how this works. I just know, with a higher diplomatic value, people are going to have generally a higher opinion of you. And we'll get into how opinion works once we're done with these stats. It gets crazy, right? The devil's in the details, and there are a lot of details. So state diplomacy, you can see here we have a base of 6. And then because of one of our stats, specifically the paranoid stat, we lose a diplomacy. So our actual diplomacy is 5. Then, so that's your personal diplomacy. So Count Werner's diplomatic ability is 5. And what does 5 mean? Obviously, we can get up into the 13s, we can get up into the 20s, and sometimes, occasionally, you can get characters into the 30s. So 5 isn't all that great. The next to that, we've got state diplomacy. And so this is the diplomatic ability of, in this case, the Count of Argau, not Werner. So it made like the county, yes, the county, not the count, the county of Argau, not Werner himself. So this will affect things like sending your chancellor off to improve relations with people, although he also has his own diplomatic skill. But I think it's more to do with the diplomatic skill of the realm than with specifically the chancellor himself, although it's probably best to have a chancellor with high diplomacy, because diplomacy is what he does. State marshal. So marshal skill is important for generals and also affects the outcome of tasks given. We can see that we've got a marshal rating of 13, a base of 6. I am a tough soldier, zealous and brave. So the tough soldier, which is your education, which we'll go over later, is going to boost your skills, and then again, all these traits your character picks up is going to have an effect on that as well. And we can see here, again, the state marshal ability, which I believe would factor into, so like personal military, let's cover this. Personal military is going to affect your base troop recruitment. So down here, so we can see I've got a personal levy of 822, and then the breakdown of the forces there as they break down. So the higher your military, or the higher your martial skill, the more troops you get. You can see right at the bottom there, I would love to move my mouse over it, but then the tooltip would go away. But you can just make out the owner martial skill at the bottom there of plus 15%. So because Count Werner has a martial that's relatively good, you're going to get an improvement on the amount of troops you can recruit. Now, I haven't paid a lot of attention to this. I don't know if, like a martial score of 1 will give you negative troop recruitment, but you're certainly not going to be able to recruit a lot of troops because you're not very military minded. And then the state marshal, I think, would affect the overall troops that you can raise. So we've got 2 different levels of troops. You've got your own troops and your levy troops. We'll cover that later. There's a lot of stuff we're going to be covering later. Anyway, but to be perfectly honest, I don't really know what your state marshal skill is going to be doing. But I think it's got to do with the amount of troops as a whole your realm can raise up. We've got state stewardship, which controls your tax income and is the primary attribute of your steward. Obviously, we've got a base of 5. And then the same thing, your state has a value as well. So stewardship, give me a moment. Let's get this thought train in the harbor lined up properly. Stewardship affects the amount of money you collect through taxes and all those other things. And I think that's based more, like if you were to go and have this guy go and collect taxes based upon, well, we got a local tax modifier of 30%, based upon either Lootbert's skills himself or the state score as a whole. Then we've got intrigue, which is the primary attribute of the spy master. High intrigue improves the chances of uncovering plots and carrying out skullduggery like assassinations. So we can see again, stat of 8, base of 6, boosted because I'm paranoid, and then the state level there. And then with state learning is the primary attribute of the court chaplain and affects the rate of technological innovation. So a 4 and 16. So intrigue, that's things like it says, like assassinations, like spying, like plotting, like things of that nature. And then the state learning will affect the technological development of certain provinces. And technological development is a whole other ball of wax. We'll get into that much later. Quite possibly into another video, because we'll see how long this goes, but we're already 10.5 minutes in. There's gonna be a few of these. Strap in for a real course like thing. So anyway, you might be asking, now that I've gone over just these 5 things, well, how do you improve them? So there's really 2 ways to go about improving them. One is by education. So, if you'll remember in part 1 of the Habsburg Millennium, we sent Otto von Habsburg off to get tutored by the Emperor with someone who had a really good diplomatic skill. That would cause the education focus to be a little bit more skewed to diplomacy, and then all of the stats and the traits of the educator factor in as well. So if we take a look at who's actually educating Otto here, we can see his base stats at age of 6, again, randomized, so 1 diplomacy and 1 state learning. Now if we take a look at who's educating him, we have Luitbert, who had a military education. He's cynical, trusting, charitable, and ambitious. And we can see the stat breakdown there. So, with Otto being educated by someone who has higher stats in, like, stewardship and martial, those stats in his education will more than likely get developed at a higher rate than others. But the education of the educator will also have an effect on Otto. And this can play into it. So if you've got a skilled tactician who happens to have a lot of stewardship, let's say this guy had a military of, I don't know, 6 and a stewardship level of 12. Otto here would be skewed stat-wise for stewardship, but skewed education-wise towards the military. And in that case, you might wind up not really being that great of a soldier or a steward. And the education, there's different levels of this trait, and I think the best way to show that would be the character creator. So I might go and take a look at that. Yeah, let's do that. Give me just a brief second. Okay, so here I am in the ruler designer, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't really need to worry about here because this is how you create your own custom character. Let's not worry about that. Let's just focus in on the education tab here. So as we can see, we've got 4 levels of education for a character. So in this case, he's an amateurish plotter, which is the lowest rank, I think. Let's just change this. Yeah. So the amateurish plotter is the lowest rank of intrigue education you can have. And as you can see, it boosts your intrigue by 1 and lowers your stewardship by 1. And you can see in the description, the amateurish plotter has received an education emphasizing intrigue skill. Unfortunately, it didn't stick. So you could get that if you sent someone to be educated by someone who specializes in intrigue, but your character doesn't have a good intrigue background, or you get this person educated by someone who's bad at intrigue. And as we go up the list, we can see that the quality of your education is going to boost the specific skill. So in this case, intrigue. But as you get higher up, you're going to get fringe skills to go along with it. So as you can see, amateurish plotter, 1 intrigue, -1 stewardship. A flamboyant schemer, 3 intrigue, -1 stewardship. Then we move up to the higher level, the intricate web weaver. You get a boost to your martial, you get a 6 in intrigue, and you get a boost to your diplomacy, and you only lose 1 stewardship. And the elusive shadow, you know, it looks like it's just a much better intricate web weaver, 2, 9, 2, -1. And each of the 5 different areas has, you know, different education. So we've got, with the diplomacy, naive appeaser, all the way up to a charismatic negotiator. Well, technically all the way up to a gray eminence. We've got the stewardship, the military, and the theological, or learning. And so, obviously, the education you get can cover, or can play a huge role in developing your character. While we're here, and while it's easier to look at, we can also look at all the traits you can get. So some of these traits happen by event. So you can see you can wind up getting stressed by an event, and you can see what that does. It lowers your intrigue, it lowers your stewardship, it lowers your fertility and your health. You can get lunatic, which is, honestly, that's kind of a fun trait to get. It's not very good for ruling, but it's fun to play around with. Same with possessed, which is also a little bit fun. And then we've got, you know, positive traits as well. So, you know, if you go on a crusade, if your character raises troops and goes out on a crusade, and any character that goes on a crusade will get the Crusader trait, which gives you a +2 martial, a personal combat skill, obviously a higher church opinion, and Catholics or Protestants or the Orthodox, well, I mean, it's a Crusader, so it's really only Catholics, but they're going to like you more. We got traits like Legitimized Bastard, so obviously breeding plays into this, because you're playing the role of the family, not the state, and so you can wind up having bastards, kin slayers. If you kill a member of your family, you know, you can be homosexual, you can be club-footed. All of these traits, so some are genetic. For instance, you're not going to be a 30-year-old and randomly become a genius. You're going to want, if you want someone to be a genius in your family and you're not a genius yourself, what you're going to want to start doing is getting into a quote-unquote breeding program to breed the best people you can. So obviously you're going to want some of the best traits, genius and strong. When you just look at what they do, they're really good to get. So some are genetic, obviously, something like inbred. You're not going to wake up at 40 and be like, oh my, I'm inbred. No. Or, you know, you're not going to wake up one day and be an imbecile. So some of these are set by genetics. Some are set, something like drunkard or incapable. Some are set by events. Leper, that's just rolling the bad dice, you know. What else have we got? So we've got other traits here: scholar, gardener, mystic, impaler, duelist, hunter. These you get from your focuses, and we'll go back into the game so I can show you guys what focuses are. And we gotta have a few others in here. So things like pilgrim. If you go on a pilgrimage, you're a pilgrim. If you're a Muslim ruler, and I haven't played a lot with the Muslims, but they've got different traits here that you can pick up. So if you're a veteran of a jihad, that's the Muslim version of Crusader. Sayyid. You can pick. Well, I guess this isn't a pick. This is an inherited trait, because your family is descended from the Prophet Muhammad's family. Mirza. Oh, so Sayyid are descended from the uncles, or from the male side. The Mirza are paternally. No, because that's. Well, whatever. You gotta be related to Muhammad to get either of those traits. And, yeah. So that covers pretty much all the traits. We'll just go ahead and finish this. Load up as, Ezonin. because, you know, it doesn't really matter who we are to discuss this stuff. So we'll go back in here, and with that covered and all of this covered, we can now pick ambitions and focuses. So we'll cover ambitions first. These are goals that you want to have. You will get a little bit of reward for completing them, depending on what it is. So for instance, because Nicholas here is unmarried, I can pick a desire or an ambition to get married. And when you do get married, you gain 10 piety, and for whatever reason, the opinion of Kaiser Henrik III changes by 15. Because he fulfilled the marriage wish, which I would assume would only happen if I married into his family or he offered a marriage. Then we've got some other longer-term ambitions, if you want. We can become exalted among men. So for this, you need to have a prestige of 1,000, which is already going to give you quite a few bonuses. If you're very, prestigious, people are going to like you more. And so if you have the ambition to become exalted among men, and you become exalted among men, not only do you now sit on 1,000 prestige, but you also gain a diplomacy point, and then gain another 100 prestige, because why not? And then opinions will change by that of certain characters, because hey, they like seeing people who are exalted. We can do the same thing with piety. It's a smaller number, but it's probably harder to get piety than it is to get prestige. You can amass wealth, which is kind of handy to do if you're in a situation where you don't have much to do. You can get that, sit back, let time tick by, and then not only are you sitting there with 500 gold, but you've also got a stewardship level. And then we've got these, the Become Chancellor, Marshal, Steward, and Spy Master. This section leads nicely into what your council does, and then I think we'll leave the video there for today. So you can see you can wish to become the Chancellor, the Marshal, the Steward, the Spy Master, and then I'm pretty sure if you've got the right skills or the right education, you could go to be the Court Chaplain as well. So let's take a look at your council. So these are characters within your court that use their stats to calculate the state diplomacy and improve things. So we can see that the state diplomacy hasn't actually been calculated yet because we haven't unpaused the game. So the Chancellor's 11 diplomacy isn't being added in, but once we unpause the game, it should. And then we'll have a boost to our diplomatic skill. Same thing with Marshal, except of course, Marshal's going to be boosting your Marshal skill. So what you generally want to do is get the person with the highest skill who's also got the proper education in it. So in this case, we can see here Gottfried, just a random courtier in Argyle. He's just chilling in court. And he is a brilliant strategist with a cavalry focus, who's paranoid, proud, brave, and content. Well, that sounds like a pretty good Marshal, if you ask me. He's 36, so he'll be around for a while, and that Marshal score, that's nice and high. So we'll appoint him there. Our Steward. So we can see we've got a bit of an issue with education in the Court of Argyle. One might say it's kind of a militarized place. So even though we don't have an educated steward, we do have someone who's got a stewardship level of 12, which isn't that bad. So we might look at getting Lutbert in there in the courtier, or Lutbert in as the steward of Argyle because of the stats. But what we'll do instead, we'll get our Spy Master, because if you're sitting here and you're looking at this and you're like, well, nobody really fits, what you can do is go on over to your Intrigue tab, and we'll cover the Intrigue tab in a different video. But you can go down to here, and you can invite people to your court. So what this will do is just spawn in a random character that you can then use to do things in court if you want. So we've got a holy man, which is handy if you don't have a court chaplain or your court chaplain sucks. Because generally what you're going to be doing is using this guy to either convert the religion of realms within your command or improving the relations with the Pope. And either way, you're going to want a higher skill because they'll have a better chance at getting it done. We can invite a noble, so invite a promising nobleman to court. And here it says, lose a gold, and a steward named Lutbert will appear. So let's see if he comes in. We spent the gold, and we can see now we've got Lutbert, courtier in Aargau from the von Schaffhausen line. He is a fortune builder who's a little bit paranoid, slothful, deceitful, and brave. Now, in this situation, you do have a choice to make. Do you want the higher numbers, or do you want the guy who specializes in it? I'm going to go with the guy who specializes in it. I don't know if that's the right choice or the wrong choice, but that's the choice that I'm going to make. And so now we've got our council set. And if we take a look, we didn't even have to unpause the game. Our state diplomacy has updated. So we can see here, we've got rank 11. And we can see here, we've got our base stat of 14 plus the 11 from our chancellor to become the state diplomacy level of 25. Now you can increase this further if we go and marry someone. So let's select this lady. And we'll just let time tick by. Okay, so we've gotten married. Marriage is a whole other thing, and we'll go over that in another video. But as you can see, the Lord Mayor of Piombino has approved my marriage to his daughter. Thank you. And then you're given a choice. We can collect a royal aid duty to pay for the ceremony. This will give you a gold, depending on how important they are, how important you are, different levels. Well, different societal standings, really, and a few other things can tweak how much gold and prestige you get. Now, in this case, because I married just a random courtier from some random court, and I'm a count, damn it, I should be marrying nobility, the prestige took a hit, because, you know, you basically, as a important person, married a commoner. Now, the prestige we're going to get from this does not counteract enough of the, you know, the negative 100, I think it was, that we got from marrying the basically, you know, not important person. But 10 gold isn't that much either, so you might as well take the prestige. And we can see now Countess Violante of Aargau. She's in Aargau. She is my wife. And we'll go back and take a look, and now my state diplomacy has gone up even more because you get half of your spouse's ratings added to everything. So we can see here our spouse plus 8, our spouse plus 5, our spouse plus 5, 4, and 6. So from a state diplomatic idea, it's probably a good idea to go out and get a very good spouse who will increase your stats even further. So, yeah, that's pretty much the first day of CK2 101. I don't know if this helped. I don't know if it was clear or if I just rambled on for probably far too long. But if you've got any questions about how this game works that you would like me to take a look at, or aren't clear on something or whatever, please leave your questions below. And you know, if you're watching the Habsburg Millennium and you come up with a question, leave it there. Don't feel like you just have to leave your questions in the classroom, as it were. But yeah, leave your questions. I will happily go over them. And again, I'd like to say I am no pro at this game, but I've certainly put in enough hours to kind of muddle my way through relatively successfully. So if you got any questions, let me know. And hopefully this was informative and maybe even a little bit entertaining. I don't know. There really wasn't much done. But yeah, let me know what you guys want covered, and I will be happy to cover it with you guys. So yeah, thumbs up if you have enjoyed this episode. Leave your comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, jokes, musings, what have you below. Leaning heavily towards the questions, though. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. We will see you next class.